پرویز روانی در خدمت شما هستیم. سوالاتی داشتیم که اگه اجازه بدید شروع می‌کنیم.
Are you from a Zoroastrian lineage?
Yes, I was born into a Zoroastrian family, and I think I am a familiar figure in the Iranian Zoroastrian community because I was an MP representing the Iranian Zoroastrians for 2 terms.
Are you a Zoroastrian only because you were born into a Zoroastrian family?
No, like others, a person born into a Zoroastrian family is supposed to have enough knowledge of Zoroastrian thoughts and a strong will to rightfully choose his or her own religion. Since your choice without knowledge bears no value in Mazdiyasna or Zoroastrianism, the individual demonstrates this knowledge through Sadrapushi ceremony, by which he or she is publicly initiated into the faith, or as they say, join the kushti wearers.
How can an individual become a Zoroastrian?
Anyone who believes in Mazdiyasni or Zoroastrian principles and practices monotheism, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, that is, the essentials of Zoroastrianism, is a Zoroastrian. Also, they perform the initiation ceremony or Sadrapushi, that is an accepted ancient ritual.
Make life most renovated.
Make life most renovated.
As God wishes.
As God wishes.
Righteousness
Is the initiation ceremony or Sadrapushi necessarily performed by a Mobed who is a Zoroastrian priest?
No, it is not necessary that a Mubad perform the initiation ceremony. Sadrapushi is an ancient ritual that indicates the initiate has gained adequate knowledge of Mazdiyasna and chooses the religion.
Are you recognized as Zoroastrian when you knowingly announced you are a Zoroastrian?
Yes, because Sadrapushi is a ritual in which the individual joins kushti wearers, that is, a full-fledged member of Zoroastrian community. It also manifests that the initiate is a Mazda or God believer and follows Mazdiyasni basic triple principle, or good thoughts, good words, and good deeds.
Is Sadrapushi a requisite to becoming a Zoroastrian?
Nothing is obligatory in the Mazdiyasni religion, and the believers must always consult their wisdom and conscience. The Sadrapushi ritual is a test of the initiate's knowledge of his choice and his belief and dedication to monotheism, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Therefore, it is advisable that this generally accepted and ancient ritual be performed.
What principles must the initiate know and acknowledge while undergoing the Sadrapushi ceremony?
Basically, the initiate takes a vow to worship Ahura Mazda, or God, and to follow good thoughts, good words, and good deeds in his life. He believes in Mazdiyasna that favors peace and deprecates war and feuding. He always strives to follow Asha, universal law that precisely regulates every move in the cosmos, and to remain benevolent and harmless to people.
Has this religion always been called Zoroastrianism ever since it came into being?
The answer is definitely no, because Zoroaster never called the religion his own name. However, it has been called Zoroastrianism and its followers Zoroastrian since the Sasanian dynasty. It was thousands of years after Zoroaster's time.
What does Mazdiyasna mean?
Mazdiyasna is composed of 3 meaningful units: Maz, Da, and Yasna. In Persian language, Maz has changed to Mas, and it means great. Da means wise or wisdom, so Mazda means the great wisdom. Yasna signifies worship and prayer. Therefore, Mazdiyasna means worshippers of Ahura Mazda, or the great wisdom, that is the only God.
Were there any indications in the Gathas that a terminating religion would follow?
No, there's nothing like that in Zoroaster's teachings.
To what extent is the information published on Persian websites that is based on parts of the Avesta, such as Vandidad, superstitious, hostile, or valid?
The Gathas or Yasna section of the Avesta is the only part that reflects Zoroaster's own sublime thoughts. Since the Gathas have always been believed to be sacred, the Zoroastrian movements have never dared to alter the contents and have delivered them by heart immaculately to the present generation. Inspired by the Gathas, the Zoroastrian movements started to write the other parts of the Avesta, such as Yashta, Vandidad, Visprad, and Khorda Avesta, thousands of years after Zoroaster. These were sometimes against Zoroaster's teachings. For example, Vandidad, meaning anti-div or anti-demon, was started during the Emperor Xerxes of Achaemenid dynasty and completed during the Sasanian dynasty. Hence, this part of the Avesta was written by fraudulent religious leaders a long time after Zoroaster's death. They were written to serve the benefits of a particular social class, and most of them did not contain Zoroaster's thoughts and teachings. Although sections of the Avesta can be a reflection of ancient Persian culture, attributing them to Zoroaster's teachings is a fallacious argument in line with personal benefits of some particular groups. In summary, if we rid ourselves of political and economic motives, it will be obvious that the Gathas are the only pure essence of Zoroaster's thought-provoking, sublime songs.
Is Mazda-Yasna a monotheist religion or a duality?
Pure monotheism can be found in Zoroaster's thoughts, and you do not have even a mention of Ahriman against Ahura Mazda. However, the two faculties of spontaneity, or progressive mentality, the divine faculty that creates, maintains, and promotes, and angramania, regressive mentality, or destructive faculty that ruins and degenerates in the thoughts of humans, do not exist in the Mazda-Yasni religion. Zorvanians called the eternal time god, and Ahura Mazda and Ahriman were known as his children, always fighting with each other. Later, this philosophy penetrated into some parts of the Avesta. In the Pahlavi scripts, Ahriman was given a real character, and the fight between angels and their counterparts was also mentioned.
What is the role of fire in Mazda-Yasna's religion? Is it respect or is it worship?
Nowhere in the Gathas is there a mention of worshipping fire. What we understand is that we should keep fire, like the other three elements, earth, air, and water, away from contamination. In the Zoroastrian traditions, the light of the fire or any other light is the direction to which they worship God. As Christians stand toward the cross and Muslims toward Mecca and worship God, not the cross or the black stone, Zoroastrians stand toward the light of fire and worship God, who is limitless, invisible, etc., but not light or fire.
Would you please explain about bearing ceremonies, especially Dakhme or Tower of Silence?
Mazda-Yasna, that is a rational and moral religion, never interferes with detailed instructions in people's private lives. Instead, such issues are left with human wisdom and collective knowledge, that is the law. You cannot find any indication of Tower of Silence or burying ceremonies in the Gathas. As I said, people can deal with such issues using their collective knowledge. In line with the same philosophy, Zoroastrians in ancient Iran, where it was cold and frosty in a very long winter, in order to bury the dead body, had to dig the ground a few meters deep to let it decay because it was frozen up above near the surface of the ground. Later, influenced by the Magi traditions, they put the dead body at the Dakhme, or Tower of Silence, to be devoured by birds because it was fast and clean. Later in history, Zoroastrians buried the dead bodies of their people, and now they also bury the bodies. Some of them cremate the bodies to prevent any harm to the environment. To sum up, we do not have a mention of burying ceremonies in Zoroaster's teachings or the Gathas, and Zoroastrians have destroyed the bodies with logical decisions they made for the time or place they lived in.
What is the reason for extreme conservativeness of Parsis and some Iranian Zoroastrians that does not allow others to convert to Mazda-Yasni?
Several centuries ago, when the first group of Zoroastrians migrated from Iran to India, the governor of the island, Sanjan, prevented them from getting off their vessel upon arrival. As the delegation went to the governor, he gave them a glass of milk and said, "You see, this glass is full of milk. Our island, like this glass, does not have any space for you." The Zoroastrians added some sugar to the milk and promised to help the people have a sweet life with them. The governor appreciated their wit and let them stay, but on 3 conditions. 1. Zoroastrians must dress just like the local inhabitants and do not have the right to wear their national clothes. 2. They must pray only after sunset. 3. They have to refrain from propagating their religion. Zoroastrians accepted the conditions and acted accordingly. Therefore, this conservativeness remained in other generations. In Iran, it was even worse. Zoroastrians did not have the right to propagate their religion. Today, non-Muslims in Islamic countries do not still have the same right. This was the historic reason behind conservativeness of many Zoroastrians. However, we read in the Gathas,
The wise man who propagates the true religion and makes people aware of the holy message, which leads them to perfection and immortality, shall enjoy the highest bliss. He shall no doubt enjoy Ahura's power too, the power which increases through Bahumanga, which is the pure mind. Yasna 31, verse 6.
Have the Gathas ever been manipulated?
with regard to existing evidence, today we have the same Gathas as they had at the time of the Achaemenians and Sasanians. The Zoroastrian Mubads have delivered the Gathas to us from one generation to the other. Since they have always considered the Gathas to be sacred, they have never dared to manipulate them. This is their biggest favor to the whole world. Therefore, I think the Gathas are the only section of the Avesta that has descended to us intact.
Did God choose Zoroaster? Or did he reach God through inspired contemplation?
Zoroaster, in his thoughts and referring to his wisdom, found God. There are features in his prophetic status that are compatible with wise thinking. Zoroaster was a thinker who reached fundamentals of Mazda-Yasni religion before he became a prophet. He realized that the essence of existence is unique knowledge and goodness that he called Ahura Mazda, meaning God of wisdom and soul, or life giver and omniscient. He realized Ahura Mazda is the creator, giver and keeper. He always realized that Ahura Mazda is the source of all existence, and there is no beginning and end to him. He is in everything and communicates with human through wisdom, morality, and his divine virtues.
What is Asha?
Asha is a conceptual term that does not have a single meaning in Persian language. Asha is the law of truth and justice. All righteous actions and reactions are compatible with Asha, or universal law. Asha indicates evolutionary dynamism, and words and deeds in line with Asha make the world advance and renew. Thus, the believers will be happy. Asha is the true nature of Zoroastrianism. It is the law of cause and effect that regulates the social and ethical order in creation. Asha is a natural as well as divine law. It is the inalterable eternal law. What the Gathas say is that the will of Ahura Mazda and Asha are the same. Asha is the manifestation of divine justice or divine will. This means you will receive the consequences of what you do. Certainly, Ahura Mazda has given us freedom of choice that enables us to independently choose our way after consulting our knowledge. We are warned that every single thought, word, or deed has its own consequences according to Asha. These consequences are not inevitable. However, the individual is free to choose. The Gathas inform us that there is no fatalism, as in Semitic religions, in the Mazda-Yasni religion, and people who choose virtues will be happy or ushta, and those who choose evil deeds will be unhappy and remorseful. You reap what you sow. Your fate is not predominated, but there are certain consequences for your actions. In Mazda-Yasna, justice is defined as the rightful results of your actions that automatically come true owing to Asha. Mazda-Yasna is, therefore, different from other religions in which the prophets intercede with God for people. Nobody can expect forgiveness through going to confession before a priest, repenting, or compensatory payment. Actions have their own good or bad consequences.
What do Ashu and Ashui mean?
Ashu is a person who is a follower of Asha, or righteousness and justice. Ashui means internal purity or virtue, and external purity or purity in the environment.
What do we have about the dignity of men and women?
In Gothic literature, we do not have distinct pronouns for men and women. This truly indicates the equality of men and women in Zoroastrian thoughts. Generally, men and women are both addressed everywhere in the Gathas.
How is the inheritance divided among the heirs in Mazda-Yasna?
As I said, there is no difference between men and women, and they are equal in the Gathas, and such issues are left primarily to human wisdom, and then to collective knowledge or the law. In addition, custody of the children is fully awarded to the mother after their father's death, and vice versa.
How is social freedom in Mazda-Yasna?
Zoroaster's thoughts give such a priority to human freedom that even worshipping Ahura Mazda is considered to be selective, and Ahura Mazda is
O the guardian of freedom and worthy of praise, O Lord of life and wisdom, I shall gain entrance to thy abode with praise and shall join thee through truth and pure thought. Do guide me, O my Lord, and help me in my tasks. Yasna 50 verse 7. Since, O Mazda, from the beginning, thou didst create soul and body, mental power and knowledge, and since thou didst bestow to mankind the power to act, speak, and guide, you wish that everyone should choose their own faith and path freely. Yasna 31 verse 11. What views are held in Mazda-Yasna about invasions, violence, and attacks.
In verse 4 of Yasna 46, we read,
The followers of untruth try to prevent those who support Asha from advancing toward their sacred goal, i.e., truthfulness, righteousness, and flourishing of the city and country. They are all known for their unfriendly actions. The persons who oppose the followers of untruth, O Mazda, with heart and soul, shall lead the world to real and true wisdom.
And in a summary of verse 9, Yasna 53,
The evil believers and evil-minded are slaves of desires and look down upon the righteous ones. Who is that righteous Lord who shall oppose the wicked persons with all his life force? O Mazda, it is only thy spiritual strength, or thy Khashatra, that can bring strength to the righteous weak. Help them and bestow upon them the best rewards.
in Yasna 32, verse 2, we also read,
One who fights wicked men by thought, words, deed, and his arms to frustrate their evil plan, or to guide them towards the path of truth, surely fulfills Lord's own will out of his love for Ahura Mazda. Would you please talk about wedding ceremonies?
During marriage testimony, the following, Yasna 53, verse 5, is read to the bride and the bridegroom.
These words I speak to you, brides and bridegrooms, and hope you hear. Deep within your souls, and leave always full of love, with pure mind. Try to suppress each other in truth. Indeed, reap the reward of joy and happiness.
And in another verse, Zoroaster tells his youngest daughter, Porochista, about choosing her husband. Consult your inner self and wisdom, and act through Armati, that is pure love and intuition. The Gathas suffice with this. However, in Zoroastrian traditions, the consent of the bride, bridegroom, and their parents, and the couple's participation in family issues are recommended. The bride and the bridegroom are advised to be determined followers of Asha, respect their parents and educators, and help the poor to whom they do not feel degraded to relate. In marriage ceremonies, it is repeatedly said, girl and boy, unite with body and soul in this world and hereafter.
How were celebrations and mournings in ancient Iran?
There was almost no mourning in ancient Iran. Instead, there were so many different merry celebrations on every occasion. These celebrations can be classified into three categories: annual celebrations like Nowruz and Sadeh, seasonal celebrations or Gahanbars, and monthly celebrations that were held when the name of the day and the month coincided. For example, Farvardingan, Tirgan, Mehrgan, Esfandgan, etc.
Is the Soshiyant in Mazda Yasna the same as Mahdi in Shiite Islam?
No, Soshiyant in the Gathas does not refer to a particular person. It signifies every benefactor, savior, or progressivist. Therefore, from a Gothic point of view, every benefactor and progressive individual is a Soshiyant. In addition, many Soshiyants were anticipated in Mazda Yasna. Zoroaster himself was also a savior or Soshiyant. In other words, we have in the Gathas one who attempts to promote progress and conservation on earth and establishes Asha is a Soshiyant.
Does Zoroastrianism belong to any specific race, like Aryan?
Mazda Yasna does not belong to any specific race, and the Gathas are generally logical, scientific, humanistic, and universal. The Gathas, or Zoroaster's sublime songs, are sweet and thought-provoking, or mantra. Moreover, they speak of the upright living. The Gathas are not bound by time or space. They are eternal, and no word is case-specific. Therefore, there is no double standard throughout unified Gothic thoughts. Since the Gothic thoughts, in which decision-making is based on knowledge and conscience, are inclusive, their application will not be difficult. Human rights are respected in Mazdayasna, that is the very first religion in which environment and ecology are taken into consideration. Man is known as God's assistant, not servant or son. Men and women have equal rights, and lying is condemned. We are instructed that truth and lie are not compatible, and there is no possible peaceful coexistence between them.
What is the precept for converting from Zoroastrianism into other religions?
In Mazdayasna, nothing is obligatory, even worshipping Ahura Mazda, and everyone should consult their knowledge and conscience in every single issue to choose the right path. In fact, the individual is responsible and accountable, and God will not accept any mediators. Hence, there is unconditional freedom in converting from or into the religion.
What is the precept for marrying a non-Zoroastrian?
Mazdayasna is a rational and moral religion. From what we understand in Zoroaster's thoughts, you should inform a non-Zoroastrian of Mazdayasna and its manners. However, they should have freedom of choice. Therefore, you are responsible for informing your spouse, but must not force him or her into the faith.
Are there any kosher or halal foods in Mazdayasna? And what is the precept for forbidden alcoholic drinks, as in the Semitic religions?
In Mazdayasna, there is no halal or kosher that exists in Semitic religions. This issue can be decided upon by using your knowledge and eventually by collective knowledge or the law.
آقای مهندس از اینکه به سوالای من جواب دادید متشکرم.
آتش نور مقدس تو از ارکان جهانی با تو هستم با تو آتش تو که نور جاودانی تو مقدس و عزیزی رحمت بارون و داری توی از نژاد خورشید لطف آسمون و داری آتش نور مقدس.
What is Faravahar a symbol of?
The word Farvahar is made up of two parts. Fara, meaning forward or ahead, and Vahar, meaning pulling. So, Farvahar literally means forward pulling force. In ancient Iranian culture, the concept of Farvahar was considered as the invaluable component of human existence because it is an attribute of Ahura Mazda's infinite entity. It is incorporated in human at birth to guide and lead toward perfection, and after death, it unites with its origin or Ahura Mazda as pure and perfect as it was. The emblem of Farvahar is a winged old sage symbolizing Mazdayasni thoughts. The symbol dates back to thousands of years ago. It is made up of the following 6 parts: head, hands, wings, central circle, feathered tail, 2 hanging curly threads. Head. The figure inside is that of an old man representing wisdom of old age that reminds us the Farvahar of the elderly can be a better guide, and that we should consult experienced and wise people. Hands. One of the hands points upwards, telling us that we should always be in only one direction, of Ahura Mazda. The other hand holds a small ring, the ring of promise. This shows respect for promise. In today's world, we see it in the form of wedding rings signifying the promise between two humans. Wings. The wings are spread apart, signifying the ascent of the soul or upward progress of human. Each wing is in 3 major segments, representing good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. This suggests progress through the triple principle. Central circle. A circle is a line that has no beginning and no end. The central circle in the Farvahar symbolizes the cycle of life and the eternity of the universe. It tells us that results of man's actions return to him in this world, and in the other world, the soul of the righteous one will enjoy the reward, or joins the domain of song and enjoys peace of mind. On the other hand, the soul of the wicked one will face the punishment, or darkness and sadness. Feathered tail. The feathered tail below is also in 3 parts. It represents the opposite of the wings, namely bad thoughts, bad words, and bad deeds. It indicates the fact that we should always drop bad choices down and avoid them. 2 hanging curly threads. These 2 threads signify spantamanio, or good mind, and angramanio, or evil and angry mind. These may occur in human mind anytime, and every Zoroastrian is responsible for embracing spantamanio and discarding angramanio to think of the good.
How are heaven and hell depicted in Mazdayasana?
In the Gathas, heaven and hell have no material or local state. The Gathas read, "The souls of our ancestors merrily depart to the domain of song, that is the abode of pure mind. The virtuous people create heavenly atmosphere in this world, which is followed by the domain of song. Evidently, this domain is nothing but a mental state, and the reward of Ashavan, the virtuous, is eternal bliss or eternity. On the other hand, the souls of the wicked, while crossing the Chinavat bridge, is afflicted with darkness. This grand concept, that is only a spiritual perception, is deformed in Vandidad and other Pahlavi scriptures.
من ماندانا باستانی هستم. در خدمت استاد بهرام بهرامی هستیم. سوالی ازشون دارم. درود بر شما آقای استاد بهرام بهرامی. میخواستم ببینم در صورتی که شما میدونین من یک زرتشتی زاده هستم، سوالی از شما داشتم. شما زرتشتی
Are you a Zoroastrian?
This question needs a little bit of explanation. If you are inquiring about my parentage, the answer is no. My father was born into a Muslim family. However, he was not a Muslim, and he had a liberally oriented mind about the universe, God, and religion. That made us really lucky. I was 15 years old when I came to know about Zoroaster's teachings. A school teacher trying to teach us methods of research made us visit Tehran National Library. My research topic was Daqiqi Tusi, a poet contemporary to Ferdowsi, who had converted to Zoroastrianism. He is the first convert recorded in the history of post-Islamic era who chose the good religion and openly talked about it. 4 virtues has Daqiqi chosen from all that you may call virtue or vice: lips ruby tinted, music of lyre, rosy wine, and the manner of Zarathustra. In fact, he had not done anything eccentric in a way. A person approaching an age of discernment can, if he or she wants, become a Zoroastrian. At no point in history of Iran was the choice of Zoroastrianism compulsory. Even today, parents are not supposed to make their children a Zoroastrian. When an individual reaches the age of wisdom or discernment based on wisdom, he wears sidre and ties the sacred girdle. Wearing sidre is an external manifestation of Zoroastrian identity, and I believe it is optional, but I recommend it strongly, especially to the new initiates. The presence of mubed or priest is not a must. An individual with a knowledge of the ritual and the ceremony is all one needs. Back to my story. After my contact with National Library, Daqiqi Tusi, and with the name of Zoroaster, my search through the works of Professor Ibrahim Pur Dawood brought me even closer to contact with depths of teachings of our wise prophet. I called myself a Zoroastrian there and then. But if your question is to find out if I am a Zoroastrian by belief, meaning that I have chosen to be one, yes, indeed I am. To be a believer of good religion is a matter of choice, not inheritance.
مفهوم مزد اهورا از نظر شما اگه بخوایم برای جوانان زرتشتی
Who is Mazda Ahura?
Most religions perceive God as a physical being, and strange enough, they claim that God is beyond physics, a metaphysical phenomenon. Here in Zoroastrianism, the prophet perceives Mazda Ahura, God, in his mind first. Zoroaster tells us that he perceived Mazda in his mind in the beginning. I recognize thee, O Mazda, in my thought, that thou art the first, also the last, that thou art Father of Wahumana. When I apprehend thee with my eyes, thou art the true creator, words that no one has ever heard. And thou taughtst me words I had not heard. Thou pronounced, to write shalt thou go for teaching. What Zoroaster hears from Mazda is a novelty that nobody has uttered. In fact, what Zoroaster hears from Mazda is a novelty that nobody has uttered. In fact, what Mazda said, even after thousands of years, is new and fresh. Zoroaster believes that in order to achieve wisdom, one has to adhere to Asha, right, because wisdom, void of righteous doctrine, has no value whatsoever. An inventor of bomb to kill people is a wise and learned man, but with no Asha or righteousness.
What do Ahura Mazda and Ahriman mean in Zoroaster's teachings? Are Zoroastrians followers of a duality-based doctrine, as they say about them?
In the Gathas, Zoroaster's own words, we find no trace of Ahriman in the sense of devil or Satan, who oppose God and heavenly deeds. Devil and Satan are invented by Semitic religions. Ahriman is a transformed version of Angra Mainyu. These two words mean decreasing Mainyu. Mainyu is from the same origin as the English word mind or the modern Persian word manish. Angra Mainyu is the reverse of Sapanta Mainyu, or the increasing Mainyu. According to Zoroaster, a human being is free to choose between Angra Mainyu and Spanta Mainyu. This freedom involves commitment. Human being is not a little kid to be taken care by an adult supervisor and guided lest he or she is misled or go astray. An individual is responsible for his or her choice. By his or her choice, an individual accepts the outcome of the choice. On the other hand, evil is not absolute. According to Zarathustra, neither is good. Evil and good are both from human mind. Evil is the result of egocentricity. Yima, or Jamshid in Persian, son of Timurthan or Tahmures, the evil slayer, is from a good-natured ancestry who has lived a life of integrity and righteousness. Time happy with him, he with time, says Ferdowsi. When, however, the same virtuous man selfishly begins to become whimsical, heavenly spirit leaves him, and he is sawed into two pieces by Dhahak, as Ferdowsi tells us. The same Dhahak is from a virtuous lineage too, but being from a virtuous descent will not save us if we choose to oppose the way of Asha. The legend tells us how he is deceived by Ahriman to overthrow his father and throne himself as the king. Ahriman kisses him on the shoulders and lets two serpents grow over his shoulders. Feridun's victory over Dhahak is the victory of good over bad. With a mind knowingly set and committed to virtue, as Ferdowsi says, the benevolent Feridun was no angel, neither was he wrought from the fragrant musk or ambergris. Evil, according to Zarathustra, is not a heavenly will. It's a deliberate choice with pending commitment, as is good.
It is said that Shah's pens are Zoroastrian archangels. Is it true?
Amshaspan's or eternal virtues are Mazda Ahura's qualities. The later Zoroastrians, who gradually had become unaware of Gothic concepts of Zoroaster's teachings due to language barriers, created the concept of 7 Amshaspans from adding Mazda to the 6 heavenly attributes. Zoroaster's Gathas were originally composed in Old Persian and had verbally been handed over from generation to generation. Even the priests, Mubeds, who had incessantly preserved the Gathas, were unaware of the exact meaning of the words. Old Persian, from the family of Indo-European languages or the Iranic group, was the language of Achaemenid dynasty, and by the beginning of Parthian and Sassanid dynasties, it was already a forgotten language. The 6 attributes of Mazda are Vohumananga, or good thought, Asha Vahishta, or best righteousness, Kshatra, kingdom or mental power, Sapanta Aremaiti, or holy right mind, meaning devotion, Vartata, or growth, and Amirtata, or immortal. Amshaspans are not archangels or gods. The obscurity of Gothic language created misunderstanding. The Gatha's symbolic language has also contributed to the ambiguity.
What does Zarathustra think of life after death, or heaven and hell?
Zoroaster was a very intelligent person, and in his Gathas he proves this, and I do not think I need to prove it. Evidently, such an exceptionally intelligent man would not tell stories of things he has not seen himself. Thus, in Gathas, we do not hear about the world beyond or heaven and hell. Let us remind ourselves that Zoroaster lived in a period in which other tribes of ethnic groups in the regions like Greeks, Assyrians, and Egyptians tell stories about the underground worlds of death and darkness. Orpheus and Gilgamesh make a trip to the undiscovered world and come back. Zoroaster is not a storyteller. This sort of storytelling meant to amuse tribes, and he has nothing to do with them. In the Gathas, there are only a few short segments about Rausha Domana that Professor Farhang Mehr translates as the bright domain. Some Avesta experts have translated it as the house of music. Zoroaster uses it to signify a step where the followers of good religion reaches the light of wisdom. One may ask why then such words like heaven, Behesh, or paradise, Firdos, and hell, Duzakh, appear in the Persian etymology. No need to say these words are Persian words. and cannot be related to the roots of other languages. The point is, however, that these words had different meanings originally. Heaven, Behesht, is derived from the Pahlavi word Vahishta, meaning best. Paradise or Firdos is a Middle Persian word, the same as the English equivalent meaning beautiful garden. Hell derives from Pahlavi, Dozhokh, meaning a place of the worst. The prefix Doj is a common prefix in modern Persian words like enemy, Doshman, insulting word Doshnam, or executioner, Doshkhin, literally one with worst manner. As we see, these words had some general shades of meaning. After Iranians were exposed to other religions and with the dispersion of their followers onto Iranian plateau, these words were selected to translate their ideas. During those days and almost immediately after the defeat of Iranians from Muslim Arabs, a Pahlavi text was written that is of some significance from political and literary points. The text is written by a holy man named Viraf, commonly known as Arta Viraf Namek, the report of the righteous Viraf, and had such an influence on the Italian author Dante Alighieri that he wrote his trilogy called The Divine Comedy. The Italian novel is a visit by a Christian holy man to the world after death and a dreadful and detailed report of the torture imposed upon sinners and evildoers. It must have created goosebumps on the audience of the Middle Ages. Viraf's report, that is titled as Arta or Arda, righteous, is more dreadful than Dante's. Dante must have written this novel based on Viraf's report. Dante does not specify the origin of his novel. Today, after we compare these two pieces, we find an immeasurable similarity between the two. Perhaps the Italian novelist heard about it from an old fellow who had traveled around the world, and that's why he does not credit Arda Viraf. We now know the fact that Iranians do not go into details on the topics of heaven or hell. And this shows us that these ideas about heaven and hell, in a sense we are using them today, have come through Semitic religions. Zarathustra's teachings have no place for these ideas and the way they are described in detail in those religions. As I explained, Zoroaster does not talk about things he is not sure about. The yonder world was ambiguous for him as is for us today, with all the technological advancement. In the Gathas, I have to clarify this, there are references to a bridge called Chinvat. Some have a physical perception of this bridge that is similar to the bridge of Sarat in Quran, that divides the sinners from righteous and punishes or rewards each accordingly. What the Gathas are describing, however, is far from Islamo-Semitic concept. Thus, the self of the liar destroys for himself the assurance of the right way, whose soul shall tremble at the revelation on the bridge of separator, having turned aside with deeds and tongue from path of right. The Avesta experts believe that Chinvat means place of choosing. Chin and Chidan are used in modern Persian with similar meaning, and has nothing to do with the bridge of Sarat, where an agent of Allah is standing like a customs officer waiting to weigh the sins of an individual to find out if the pan of his or her sin is heavier to throw him headlong into the hell. That cannot be found in Gathas, and we do not see a frowning custom officer waiting for us. Grammatically speaking, the subject of the sentence in the quoted section from Gathas is the individual and not a messenger on duty or an official sent by God.
Are the Socians the same as messiahs or saviors in other religions who will spread justice all over the world?
Soshant in Old Persian and the language of the Gathas literally means prophet donor. According to Zoroaster, each man and woman, after they choose for themselves the good religion, they embark on renewing the world. The attempt to freshen the world is only available through prophet-giving procedures. In other words, Soshant is a common word applying to those who intend to be benevolent. In Mazdiyasna, nobody is waiting for a Messiah because, first of all, it is unwise, and second of all, every age and era is different from other ages. Hence, to send a 14th century old man to act as a savior and get the revenge of the oppressed from the oppressors would be unwise of God, and no fool would commit such a childish act.
Is the Zoroastrians' holy book Avesta? What are the Gathas?
The Gathas are Zoroaster's own words, with an estimated antiquity of 4 to 8 millennia. These mantras or songs were miraculously saved from being forgotten and were descended to us from generation to generation. The Gathas make the smallest portion of the Avesta. The Avesta is a collection of writings about Zoroaster and his religion, which were compiled centuries and millennia after the prophet. To call this Avesta a holy book of Zoroastrians is a big mistake, as compiling a collection of writings from other religions and calling it the Bible of that religion. Besides, unlike the idolizing approaches of early Muslims that prevails today in Islamic teachings and would consider some acts as disrespectful to Quran and the sacred bases of Islam, no scripture of Zoroastrianism has ever been regarded as sacred. So calling Avesta a holy book is basically wrong.
استاد بهرامی سپاسگزارم از وقتی که برای این گفتگو گذاشتین، لطف کردین.
با سپاس.
ایدون باد، ایدون ترج باد.
Zarathustra hoped the Sociants, or saviors, all over the world would deliver a benevolent message of improvement, honor, human nobility, and perfection to humanity. Human nobility and honor. Human beings are respectable and lovable. They possess rights, part of which is called the human rights. Worldview. The Mazdiyasni religion views the world as man's native land, leaves man's wisdom free to choose their own way of life, and does not interfere with people's private lives. Human societies are free to choose their own way, to fit their time and place where they live, using their wisdom and then the collective knowledge to consistently work hard and think well to fulfill man's global responsibility for the cause of improvement and perfection. In fact, it suggests the best form of secularism, that is, exclusion of religious thoughts from the government and social issues that must be decided upon by the collective knowledge that is now manifested in the legislation. Relying upon the cultures of societies and ethnic groups, the Mazdiyasni religion regards friendship, kindness, and self-awareness as the foundation of development in human societies. Education, improvement, endeavor, happiness, and kindness. The Mazdiyasni religion necessitates an enjoyable life with kindness, friendship, happiness, and education. Absolute freedom and equality between men and women. The Mazda-Yasni religion propounds absolute freedom in lifestyle, speech and thoughts, place of living, and religion. The equality between men and women is strongly advised in the Gathas. Freedom. Once, O Mazda, from the beginning, thou created soul and body, mental power and knowledge, and once thou placed life within the corporeal body and bestowed to mankind the power to act, speak, and guide. Thou wished that everyone should choose his or her own faith and path freely. Yasna 31, verse 11. Equality between men and women. O ye people, listen with vigilant ears to the highest truths. Consider them with illuminated minds and decide each man and woman personally between the two paths, good and evil. Yasna 30, verse 2. Thus, men and women, let's unite and learn the basics of the Mazda-Yasni religion. It was stipulated at the 4th International Zoroastrian Congress that according to the Gathas, conversion to Zoroastrianism is allowed.
بیایید با هم به زرتشتی تولدی دوباره برگردیم.